talk about? Space? Well, as little as I know.
You're the only astronaut in the room.
As some of you may know, I went up into space. It was scary. It was. I was. Do any of you know the documentary stuff about the Hindenburg, the Zeppelin Hindenburg burning? You know what burned? Hydrogen gas in the Hindenburg. So this was, for those of you who don't know, it was a giant airship coming from Germany. It went over to New Jersey and started to anchor at a post so that the several hundred people inside the airship could get out. They'd come from Germany, crossed the Atlantic in this airship, and they set down a line to anchor to the post on ground. And what we now know is that there was a leak of hydrogen somewhere in the back of the ship, a giant ship, like the size of this hall. And the anchor, the line that they sent down, caught static electricity, which went up the line and then into the ship, and was the spark that lit the hydrogen gas, that immediately there was a conflagration, and then there's this footage of people running from the ship, and the announcer was announcing, oh, here comes a Zeppelin, suddenly is describing a burning ship, the hydrogen burning, and it has a famous line, because he must have been ad-libbing, looking at this thing and saying, oh, the humanity of it, watching all these people die. That phrase, oh, the humanity of it, which kind of doesn't make much sense when you just say it, unless you're looking at burning hydrogen. So I'm lying back in the seat on the rocket, and they're putting hydrogen into the ship. So my impression was, oh, the humanity of it. It was scary. And then there was a giant gantry, 11 stories high. So they asked me to come a day earlier, and I didn't really understand why until much later, after everything was over. I got home. I thought, you know, why would they bring me a day early? Well, sometime during that early day, they said, let's go to the gantry, and we'll show you what you're going to do. So there was this gantry, 11 flights, and at 4,000 feet altitude, the desert, and we started to walk up 11 flights of stairs. First flight, I'm okay. Second, third, I'm sucking air. And I'm thinking, oh, look at that, look how beautiful and look how beautiful the desert. Then another couple of, oh my goodness, look at, well, I finally made it to the 11th floor. And it was only days later that I realized, can Shatner make the 11 floors up? So I did. And now I'm lying in the vehicle, in the spaceship, and they're over the little loudspeaker they have. They said, all right, now the gantry's going to move out. If this is the last moment, if anybody says, I'm not going, this is the moment, because the gantry's going to leave. And I'm thinking, maybe I could say I'm not going. And then I see the gantry leave, and then there's no escape. Now you're in a thing with hydrogen gas and the humanity of it, and the gantry is going, and that was when I was really afraid. Because there was no going back. And hey, I'm Captain Kirk. I can't say I'm going. It was something. You know, when they asked me to go up, well, actually the history of it is that a gentleman that I worked with on another series called Better Late Than Never, and we went all over the world with some wonderful people, and this young man, Jason Ehrlich is his name, he produced the show and was responsible for giving us problems to solve, the four of us problems to solve that would be amusing because we were there ad-libbing all the time. So we were ad-libbing the show, trying to be funny and informative and whatever else. And I mean, he would devise things like we were in Sweden at in the country in Sweden, and apparently the Swedes eat a very esoteric dish. It's in a can, and it's fermented fish. So, you know, fermentation is it's fungus, isn't it? Fungi? In any case, fermentation makes beer, and makes alcohol, and all the fermented foods. And it's bacteria that does it. So they give off a gas. So it's well known that if something's going bad in a can, the can expands. So if you've got something in a can that you're going to eat, and the thing is pushing against the sides, you know it's gone bad, and you dare not eat it because it could poison you. So you throw the can away. You don't want to open it, because common sense tells you that the escaping gas will blow whatever's inside the can in your face. So anybody knowledgeable knows that dispose of the can, but don't open it. So this fermented fish comes in a can, and now they had us placed all around on a table. I'm trying to think of it. I hate it when this happens. The quarterback, Terry Bradshaw, not this so much. Stick with me, I'm going to need you more often. Terry Bradshaw is across the table from me, and he and I had a friendly competition going on the whole time. So they've got cameras all lined up, taking pictures of all of us in group shots and stuff like that. So somebody, I think it was, it might have been me, opens the can, and the can explodes, and there's this fermented liquid all over it. Now, I played a policeman for several years, and these really experienced policemen know the smell of dead bodies, okay? It's abhorrent. The smell of decaying flesh is something that is really, is one of the most offensive things to our nose. So these guys carry around a handkerchief, and they've been around dead bodies a lot, and they've described how awful it is, you know, how decaying flesh is such a stench it can hardly be. I'm told that fermented fish smells worse. So now we're all doused with this fermented fish, and we had been told, wouldn't it be neat if somebody would eat the fish? So I have a piece of fish in my hand, and I popped in there, and it actually was like fermented cheese that smells really badly, and you eat it. It's really quite interesting. It doesn't taste like the way it smells. So this fish didn't taste the way it smelled. Then I took another piece of fish, and I looked at Terry Bradshaw, and he knows what I'm going to do. Before I tell you, it smells so badly that these cameras that were interlocked, this camera caught a glimpse of this cameraman as he was shooting that over there. And this cameraman, when the can was open, projectile vomited. This way, it was caught on camera. It went out that way. That's how bad it smelled. So Bradshaw sees me and he starts to run away. I run after him. And the great quarterback with 4 or 5 Super Bowl rings cuts to the left and comes out of his shoes. He's got bad knees, he's arthritic, man can hardly walk, and he falls to the ground and I jump on him. And he said later, the worst thing in his life that ever happened to him was me, Shatner, running me down. So I'm lying back on the spaceship, we're back there, and we begin our ascent, and we were told about the G-forces that would be on it. We rehearsed, or practiced, for the whole time we were there, doing really one thing, and that was this seat was prone like this, so that the G-forces would be spread, and we wouldn't have. I've been on an F-16 in a tight turn, and they pull about 10 G's, or something very high, and the blood goes from your head to your feet, and pilots, war pilots, combat pilots, know that they're going to black out when the blood leaves their brain. They faint for a period of time, and in fact they have equipment that tightens the air pressure, tightens on their body to prevent, to delay the blood leaving your head and going to your feet. Well, there was none of that on board this spaceship. But what there was this seat in which we would be in weightlessness. And the whole idea of this practice was, after we've been in weightlessness, you got to get back in your seat before the end of weightlessness, and the ship starts to descend, and you're going to be in about 7 Gs. If you're not in your seat and bound back into this 5-point harness, you could break your back if you fell to the floor. So everything was practiced. Loop this arm in here, roll over here, get this. It's a 5-point harness. I've driven fast cars a lot, and I've been in a lot of 5-point harnesses. You know, the thing, slick, click, click. The crotch strap goes in here, and you've got a dial which will release it all of a sudden. But you've got to click the 5 points in. So the first click in this harness is there because you loop your hand in as you roll into the seat. Then you got to get this one. Then you got to click that, and then lying like this, you got to get the crotch strap into a hole way down here. So you're trying to put the 5th and most important strap lying like this. I failed it all. I failed it in practice, and to tell you the truth, I failed it when we were on the ship. So that was what was concerning everybody, getting back and after weightlessness. So we get 3 or 4 Gs, we get up there, and then somebody says, we're weightless, and everybody rolls out of their seat, and indeed we're floating around. Jeff Bezos had gone up first. In fact, when I said to Jason early, when Bezos decided to go himself, and there was a moment when we thought Bezos might choose me to go with him, he chose his brother, and then he chose an elderly lady and a very young man. So those 4 were the first people up in Blue Origin rocket. I saw footage of Jeff Bezos weightless, because there were all kinds of cameras on board the ship. So there's a camera pointing this way, and Jeff Bezos is over here at this end, And what he does is he gets weightless, and you can see him, like, wow, weightless. And now, on this camera, his rear end is facing us. And his legs are spread, because he's trying to adjust to weightlessness. So all you see is Jeff Bezos' ass. I don't know why they would do this, but they had Skittles on board the ship. I don't know why. And the young man is throwing Skittles at Jeff Bezos' ass. That's the footage of this monumental. So when I saw that footage, I thought to myself, I'm not wasting any time on weightlessness. I'm going to this window, because you have about 2 minutes to look at what's going on. So weightless, I rolled out of my seat, and I got to the window. I didn't know what the others were doing. They were enjoying it. And I looked back. I don't know why. I looked back like this. And I saw the Earth and the blue sky. Apparently, Yuri Gagarin, the first astronaut, went up in the air and looked at the planet for the first time anybody been up that high. And what he said in Russian was, "It's blue." Like, we saw blue sky, but we know that's refraction of the sun. And the air is colorless, unless the sun is there refracting in a blue color. So it became as a surprise when he said, "It's blue." And everybody was like, taken aback. It was like monumental in Earth history. A human individual says about the planet, "It's blue." So I'm looking back at this blue air. Have I tired you out? Holy cats! I exhausted. And I'm tired. Is anybody substitute for me? So I'm looking back, and I saw something that nobody else has ever mentioned. I'm looking at through the blue air, what appears to be the wake of the vehicle. Like a submarine going through the water leaves a hole in the water that the water comes together and fills. It's a wake. And I'm looking back there, and there's a wake through the air, through the blue air. Oh my God, nobody's ever talked about that. And I turn around and I look, and there, facing me, is the blackness of space. Now I know as much as any uninformed individual about space. I know the stars, I know the black holes, and I know a little bit like everybody else, but maybe a little bit more because I've talked to them. Constellations clashing. I know about the magic, the beauty of the mystery of space. I know about that. But what I saw was black as death. I looked at that. I thought, oh my God, that's death. And I looked back at the Earth in its beige and blue, white colors. I thought, that's life. Death, life. And then, because I've done a lot of work over the years, starting with Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, maybe 50 years ago, she wrote a book called The Silent Spring, forecasting all the harm that we would do to the planet which has come about. We're destroying the planet. And I was filled with such sadness over looking at this life-giving. I could see about that much of the arc of the Earth. But that's finite. You could see when you continued the line, it would be, you could continue the line of the Earth. I've hitchhiked across the United States. I've driven trucks, I've driven sports cars, I've driven alone, I've driven with family, I've driven with a dog, trucks. It's endless. It's endless. You look down the road in Texas and it disappears into infinity. You think, holy cats, I gotta drive all that way. And then you get there and it's another infinity. It's endless. It's not. There was this little rock. I went to Cambridge to interview Stephen Hawking not so long ago. And I may have been the last person to interview him. And while waiting for him in Cambridge, I sat in the cathedral in Cambridge, which is enormous, one of the big ones. And I sat in whatever they call that column that goes up, makes it a cathedral. And as I was sitting there, and the sunlight was going through the glass, the glass windows, there was somebody cleaning the organ, and by that they were pressing chords. So there were these thunderous chords going on, while I was looking at the stained glass windows and caught in the middle of this gigantic space that caught the sunlight was a little tiny piece of dust. And for a moment, you could see it. And I thought, that's what the Earth must look like in space. It's a tiny piece of dust, but it's even smaller than that. I've heard it likened to a grain of sand. Excuse me, I've got to drink of water in a minute. I've heard it likened to a grain of sand in the Sahara Desert. That's how tiny we are, the planet is. And we tiny human beings are on this tiny planet. So how infinitesimal are we in the grand scope of things? All this struck me while I was there. It was only later that oh, thank you. Would you open that up for me? You're very kind. It's very unusual here. You're not local. You're from out of town. Thank you. I don't need that. The planet is infinitesimal compared to anything else. We, on this infinitesimal planet, are infinitesimal. We're nothing. We're little ants. We're not even ants. Ants are bigger than we are compared to. But then the thought hit me some days later. What a miracle it is that we, little tiny infinitesimal beings, are aware of how infinitesimal we are and how infinitesimal our planet is. We're aware that we are nothing, but that awareness is extraordinary. It's holy. We are viewers. We're viewers of the incredible complexity and simplicity that the universe is. And that was the thought, the final thought I had on this space journey. Water. Water is the source of everything. Did you know that? Of course you know that. Water is the giver of life. We're polluting everything. We can't pollute anymore. I saw a wonderful documentary on fungus and how fungus can consume a lot of the dirt that we're putting in on the earth and in the water. That might be a saving grace that we use natural things to overcome our unnatural things. Well, another question. Surely there's something you want to know about. Are you leaving, sir? I'm so sorry. We'll never know who you are, mask as yet.
I was coming so you could hear me.
Oh, there's a microphone there. Take your mask off for a moment. Oh, it's you, George.
How you doing, sir?
Good. Right into the mic. Speak. Get right into the mic.
Okay, how you doing?
Perfect.
It's an honor to see you in person. I'd like to know which one of the Star Trek films was your favorite to do?
Well, there's no question which was the best one. Star Trek 5 is the best one. The fact that I directed it has nothing to do with it. Probably the most popular and the best one was the one with the whales. You know, it's interesting directing please sit down and make yourself at home. They gave Leonard Nimoy and I had a contract, whatever the other gets, and that kind of thing. So he was able to get them to let him direct the film, so they had to let me direct the film, so I chose 5. I was the 5th. And they allowed us to do anything we wanted, any subject, pretty much. So I thought, what an interesting subject would be for a story that I would like to tell, would be Star Trek goes in search of God. Wow. Everybody said, whoa, what a great idea. I had been reading an author who wrote about an American in Japan, and this American in Japan, kind of valiantly think of the guy's name, was didn't belong there, so it was like a Spock-like character, and he'd be perfect to write this story about we go in search of God. What was his name? There's three names. In any case, I went to New York, and we walked the streets of New York, he and I, talking about how Star Trek, how the cast could go in search of God. And I came back to Los Angeles and told the people at Paramount Studios what I had done, and this famous author wanted to write the script, and everybody was excited. And then they began to negotiate with the writer, and the writer wanted the book rights, because he was writing the book. He would write the script, but he would have the book rights to write the book to the script. And Paramount wanted to retain the rights to the book, I mean, justifiably. Each party had a reasonable argument. So it ended that he didn't write the book. He didn't write the script. Then, I believe it was Gene Roddenberry said, well, whose God is it? Good question. There are so many gods that different religions identify as their God, and people have died. Millions of people have died over the centuries saying, this is my God and you better believe it or I'll kill you. So that was a problem. And then somebody said, what if it, but I had the characters going and finding the devil instead of God, but the devil by extension means that God exists. You negotiate. We do that all through our life. We have a mantelpiece at our house, and I've gotten a statue, a piece of sculpture from South Africa. I'd gone to visit the guy in South Africa, this wonderful South African sculptor, and I picked out this piece and brought it home and put it on the mantelpiece. And there alone on the mantelpiece was this magnificent rhinoceros made of jadeite, greenish, not jade, but jade, something in the jade family. Marvelous piece, a rhino. And alone on the mantelpiece, my wife said, yeah, and we could put 2 candlesticks, one over there and one over there. I said, no, Liz, alone. It looks like you know the mantelpiece, the candlesticks. My principle was this thing looked really good alone. Hers was, we need the candlesticks. You can't have both. You can only have one or the other. So if you stand on principle, I mean, what do you do? So there are candlesticks on the mantelpiece. But the point is, there are some things you've got to stand on principle, and I don't know what that is, and some things you have to negotiate all through life. And that's what I learned on that film. There were so many compromises I had to make that, looking back now that I've learned that principle, had I known that, I would have done something different, but I didn't. So Star Trek V is a flawed movie filled with promise that I couldn't quite deliver. So Star Trek IV is probably the best. Please. Now, the trick here is to put your mouth right on, so the other person gets your COVID. Right on the microphone.
I'm not going to stand on this thing.
Yeah, even closer, dear.
All right.
Take your mask off. Oh goodness, your mask is off. How embarrassing.
All right.
Go ahead.
Have you ever gone to a
No, a
fight?
little closer.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Perfect. Have you ever gotten into a fight between a Star Wars fan and a Star Trek fan?
Star Wars and Star Trek?
Have you ever gotten into a fight?
Yeah, Star Wars is that other thing, and Star Trek is this thing. You know, I met and spent some time with that cast there. They're wonderful. They're great people. And of course, what a work of art that Star Wars is. It's a tremendous work of art by all the people involved, including Industrial Light and Magic, doing their special effects, which is which is the company I wanted to do Star Trek V special effects, and we never were able to get them. They were busy, which added to the lack of. Anyway, it was a problem. They are in the area of fables. They're in the area of a kind of mystical story that has heroes and heroines and villains and little magic people, and it's wonderful stuff. Star Trek, at its best, deals with reality, with human beings in the midst of something that. So that the best, in my opinion, the best Star Trek stories deal with human beings and things that we would like to do. Like one of the, and I'm only talking now about the Star Trek that I was on, the desire to change something in the past. If only we could go back and not turn to the left and go to the right, how much better that would have been for everybody. Or racism. You're painted black on the left and white on the right, and I'm white on the right. You're different from I am. The stupidity of those things. These wonderful stories that were invented by science fiction writers. There's a book I've just finished. I was delayed coming here yesterday. The plane was on the ground for 2 hours, over some oxygen thing. I thought it was nitrogen. I didn't think of that until now. Maybe it was nitrogen. And I had bought a book. Now, I've forgotten the title of the book, and I've forgotten the name of the author, but it's about Oumuamua, the object that came through space a while ago. They only saw the tail end of it. And this author claims it's from outer space. I mean, it doesn't belong in nature. Some entity fashioned it. And I had the ability, the occasion, for the 6 hours I was in the airplane, to read the book. So I pretty much finished it. And in fact, I do a show called I Don't Understand, which you can get on streaming. It's about things I don't understand, which is everything. I mean, I really don't understand anything. None of us really understand anything. I mean, how does a toilet work? Do you understand how a toilet works? Not really. I mean, it goes down the drain, but why does it go down the drain? I mean, he called in the plumber to fix the toilet, and you look at the guy's not looks like any great brain, but he knows how to fix a toilet, and I don't. Let alone, what's an algorithm? What the hell's an algorithm? Oh, we're writing an algorithm. What are you writing? Could I write an algorithm? No, you can't write an algorithm. Well, if your brain can encompass an algorithm, why can't I? What's a muon? Muon! I don't know. So I'm able to ask people these questions. So this gentleman has written a book about the Oumuamua. It's called Oumuamua because it's a Hawaiian word meaning something. They described it in the book, and I've forgotten that too. But it's like visitor or something. So what they saw was, and then some guy with a telescope, at a telescope, saw this thing coming towards us, a piece of debris coming towards Earth. And it just seemed to be on a course like a comet or an asteroid. And he's looking at it, and suddenly he realizes it's not doing what an asteroid or a comet would do. So he tells everybody starts to look at it. By that time, it's rounding the sun. And now it rounds the sun, increases in speed because of the gravity of the sun. Do you understand why gravity propels something faster? Do you? I don't. I mean, everybody, oh yeah, we're going around the sun and we're going to go faster because we're going around a gravitational body. What's gravity? Nobody knows. What the hell is gravity? Oh, look at this. I'm going to drop the water. It's going to fall to the ground. Why? Newton said it's gravity. Well, what does that mean? We don't know what gravity is. That's a little byproduct of what I'm saying. So this thing went around the sun and accelerated and left the solar system. This man, looking over the data that was now, because they had several telescopes trained on this object, he and many others like him say that was not, I don't even know what the term would be. It's not man-made. It's not made by nature. It is an unnatural thing. And they took pictures, and it looked like a cigar. Would you come back and hold my water? No, I'm okay. So it's like a cigar, right? So you're seeing a cigar. But when it turned this way, it was a flat, circular plane. This book claims, and he offers all kinds of evidence, that that's a piece of debris from another civilization. We have 5, 6 probes going beyond our solar system. Someday in the future, if it's not destroyed by stuff in space, some entity on some planet will see something whiz by and say, what was that? And it's a piece of Earth debris. What this gentleman is claiming is that's a piece of debris from another civilization. And it is, he suspects it's part of a solar sail. That's the impulse that, and we're doing the same thing, by the way, that will be the future of space travel. That the, whatever those cosmic rays are like a wind, and the sail is part of it. So there now seems to be more opinion about UFOs and its source, which leads me into the footage of the Navy pilots that we've all seen with those objects flying around. They didn't know what it was, and they were speculating, well, maybe it's electronic manifestation, and yet it came right at the pilot, and everybody, yeah, it's exactly right, it went like that. So the question of UFOs and other civilizations is becoming more and more heated up. I was on Ancient Aliens a while ago, the group of the people who work on, who think about ancient aliens and write and work for the show. And I was there to lead a discussion about, because I was a cynic, and they brought all kinds of people on to say, no, UFO, well, we know unidentified flying objects, that's unidentified. To identify them as coming from Earth, coming from other civilizations, that's a big step. This gentleman has made that step. So it really is, and he says that's going to happen more and more. And he says there are civilizations. Listen, the furthest constellation we can see is 13.8 billion years out in space. But that's the light, that's the time it took for that photon of light to reach the observer's retina. 13.8 billion light years. That means that object, that constellation, is 13.8 billion light years somewhere else. It no longer is in the place where we thought it was. Where did it go? The universe is expanding. Why is it expanding? We don't know. We're calling it dark matter, dark energy. It's because we don't know what it is. You see, nobody knows what's going on. Imagine with that constellation which we saw on that red ship, you know what I'm talking about, through a great telescope, the great telescope, the Hubble telescope. See, I told you. But we've just launched the Webb telescope, 100 times more sensitive than the Hubble. And right now, it's unfurling for the next 6 months. I know you know all of it. But little things, 140 things have to happen before it's unfurled. Now, you know where it goes? This is like stunning to me. We know that objects have an attraction. Things are attracted by a large object, and that's how we move our space objects around through gravitational pull. The Webb telescope is being launched to go to a point in time called the Lagrange point in time. There is an area, the Lagrange area, I don't know how big it is, but it's very small, nearer the sun, where for some reason the gravitational pull is almost neutral between the Earth and the sun, and this little Some years ago, I was being taught to kayak. Had to go. The whole idea on this film was for me to go down they have rapids numbered 1 to 5. 1 is very nice, and 5 is really huge. So in number 1, you learn that a stream going down, a stream like this, has a back current, so that the people who went on those waterways by canoe would stick close to the shore because the friction of this caused this. Something like that is happening in the Lagrange area. How do they know that? They're going to park the Webb telescope in a neutral gravitational area. That's like, what? I mean, that's unbelievable. Who would have thought of that? That there are little islands with backdrafts. I don't know. Am I overstepping my time? How am I doing for time? You don't know.
No, you're finished.
Am I good? Am I good for time?
You're done.
I seem to be here a long time. I hope you're with me. You're still with me? Fantastic. There's so much mystery out there. There's so much, not so much, we don't know anything. It's incredible. When I do this show, I don't understand. And I'm able to book things I don't understand. Like I'm booking that author. That author I'm going to talk to in a week or two. That's why I was reading, not why I was reading the book, but I was glad to be able to read the book, to be able to ask him questions about, tell me about Momo. I know I'm going to say Mao Mao, but it's Momo. Tell me about that. Then he uses the book to use that object to talk about the possibility of civilizations in other areas, the number of exoplanets that exist in our galaxy is billions of stars with billions of places for planets to be. I mean, it's just incomprehensible that space isn't alive with life. I talked in one of these talk shows, I talked to Robert, who discovered the Titanic? Ballard. Thank you. You're better. I talked to Bob Ballard about what he was doing. So Bob Ballard's cameras found the Titanic. There was a big fuss about the Titanic. So one of the questions, Bob Ballard is an extraordinary marine scientist. He isn't just a filmmaker, although he's got these incredible underwater films. But he's a marine biologist. He's a brainiac. He invited me on his ship, by the way. He just left a couple of months ago. I couldn't go. So I said to him, he asked me to call him Bob. I said, Bob, what are you doing filming the Titanic? Why aren't you doing something meaningful in marine biology? He said, well, I was asked by the government to come and do something like that because one of our submarines, the Scorpion, had sunk in that area, and there were atomic-tipped torpedoes there, and the Navy wanted to get that ship up now. 400 miles up there, the Russians had ships doing something or other, and they needed a cover for the lifting of the Scorpion. They found the Titanic. They made all this fuss about, here's the Titanic, and it was all covered to get the scorpion. I said, okay, then what were you doing? I gotta take a sip. What were you doing in Loch Ness? Looking for the Loch Ness monster. I said, what? He said, National Geographic has funded me all these years, and they wanted kind of sensational show. So I had to go and look around for the non-existent dragon. I said, well, tell me something else.